Hey there, everyone. Bryan here from the Oraculos School of Astrology with next month's astrology for the month of November 2025. Now, if you're watching the recordings of this on YouTube, we're going to be releasing these week by week so that you'll still be able to get your next week's astrology fix. But for those of you who are part of our membership community, you are definitely getting the entire download for the month ahead, for the month of November 2025. And this episode today is definitely sponsored by our new membership community over at the Oraculos School of Astrology called Mychal's Cosmic Conservatory. Mychal's Cosmic Conservatory. I'm still getting used to the name because, you know, when you make stuff up, sometimes you have to get used to it. But it's Mychal's Cosmic Conservatory right here at the Oraculos School of Astrology. And I couldn't be more excited to be here today. Today we have a live studio audience with the members in our community. And for those of you who don't know about our Cosmic Conservatory yet, this is our membership-based community where you get to dive into all things, both astrology as well as astral divination related. In this community, you'll get these monthly downloads for the astrology of the month ahead, as well as be able to join our Kabbalistic Tarot study circle, as well as dive into our lucid dreaming community as well, and so many other wonderful gifts and offerings. One of them is that we have up to 25% in discounts on a lot of our webinars and seminars. And also, if you don't get to catch things live, you also get access to our membership community library. So we have a lot in store for you over at Mychal's Cosmic Conservatory. And I sincerely hope that you choose to join us so that you can be a part of not just the astrology offerings that we have here, but also everything else that we do that is magical and wonderful and divine. All right, everyone. So we're going to start off with November 2nd. We're starting on November 2nd because there's nothing happening as far as hard aspects are concerned on November the 1st. Now, as you all know, at the Oraculos School of Astrology, whenever we're dealing with planet-to-planet combinations, we're always going to be focusing on the hard aspects only. And the hard aspects are important within all of our astrological applications when it comes to looking at planets as themselves. Now, we know that within traditional astrology, we have a means of looking at planets as the rulers of houses. And when we're looking at planets as the rulers of houses, we're not looking at those planets as themselves. So when I'm looking at Venus as the ruler of the first house, for example, I'm not looking at Venus as the goddess of love, or Venus as a goddess of beautiful things, or Venus as a goddess of art, or perfumes, or women's clothing. I'm looking at Venus as the specific representative of that person to whom the natal chart belongs within this lifetime. So these are two different ways of looking at planets. One is looking at that planet as a universal significator, i.e., looking at Venus as the universal significator of love, and the other way is looking at that planet as the ruler of a house. So when we're looking at planets as universal significators, from an event-based astrology perspective, it's always going to be more useful to look at those planets through their hard aspects only. So the reason why we're not talking about any events happening on November 1st is because there are no hard aspect combinations between the planets on the 1st of November. So we're going to dive into the 2nd of November. And on November 2nd, we have the moon making her last aspect in the sky before she goes void. Of course, that's going to be moon conjunct Neptune, which is happening at 10:15 a.m., after which she's going to be void, of course, until 10:39 a.m. So literally just about roughly 20 minutes, she's going to be void, of course, on the 2nd of November before ingressing into the sign of Aries. And as you all know, I don't need to give you my whole spiel about the void, of course, moon every single week. As you all know, when the moon is void, of course, we don't usually like to initiate things. And the reason for that is because when the moon is void, of course, it's as if there is no wind within our sails to blow us forward for that particular period of time. So during that 20-minute period, meditate or something, but it isn't a fruitful time as far as astral weather is concerned to do anything. Now, we could still do things because clearly people do things all the time, all around the world without knowing when or when not the moon is or isn't void, of course. But the reality is As we study astrology, we want to start living our lives more in harmony with these cosmic tides that occur all around us. And insofar as living in harmony with those cosmic tides is concerned, it's not a bad idea to just keep in mind when the moon has the ability to give us more energy behind our efforts versus when she doesn't. So that's the 2nd of November. Moving on through, also on the same day, we have the Sun in a Sesquiquadrate relationship with Saturn. Here we have the Sun at 10 degrees Scorpio, 31 minutes, in a Sesquiquadrate relationship with Saturn at 25 degrees of Pisces, 43 minutes retrograde. I'm going to just mark that on the screen so that we can see this is Sun and this is Saturn. And the distance between them, or the arc opening between them, is 135 degrees. The 135-degree distance between planets is known as a sesquiquadrate. I've had students over the years call it a sexiquadrate. I've had them call it a sesquiquadrate, all sorts of stuff. But it's not sexy, not in the least. It is a sesquiquadrate. Sesquiquadrate. And the sesquiquadrate as an aspect is a 135-degree arc opening between planets. So when we speak about arc openings, we're speaking about the distance between planets. So for example, a square would be a 90-degree arc opening between planets. For example, on the screen, we have Jupiter at 25 degrees of Cancer in a square relationship with Chiron at 24 degrees Aries, 8 minutes retrograde. This is a 90-degree arc opening between Jupiter and Chiron, and therefore we call that a square. So aspects simply refer to the arc opening between planets, and when we're referring to a sesquiquadrate, we're referring to something that is 90 degrees plus 45 degrees, which gives us our 135-degree sesquiquadrate. Why are we using the sesquiquadrate? Because the sesquiquadrate is a part of our larger expanded hard aspect family. What is the hard aspect family? The hard aspect family are all of the aspects divisible by the number 45. And those aspects are going to be the 45-degree semi-square, the 90-degree square, the 135-degree sesquiquadrate. Why? Because a sesquiquadrate is a square as well as a semi-square. 90 degrees plus 45 degrees gives us 135 degrees for the sesquiquadrate. And then finally, the 180-degree opposition. We know that the glyph for the opposition is literally two planets opposite each other, and that is 180 degrees. So collectively, those are the hard aspects, the quote-unquote major hard aspects that we're taking a look at whenever we're doing this sort of transit work, and also that we take a look at whenever we're doing any sort of concrete event-based planet-to-planet natal astrology work. So on this day, the 2nd of November, we have the sesquiquadrate between the Sun and Saturn, which says that this is one of our down days. What is a down day? A down day is a sad day, a depressive day, a day that isn't aligned with success, a day that isn't aligned with victory, a day that isn't aligned with achievement. Within Uranian astrology, we have a method of identifying the up days and the down days for a person individually based on relationships between their natal Sun and the transiting Jupiter. And similarly, we have a way of identifying the down days for a person individually based on the relationship between their natal Sun and the transiting Saturn. And so today, the 2nd of November, if this were happening within a person's natal chart, if this were their natal Sun afflicted by the transiting Saturn, we would call this a down day. Down day means this could be a day that is more heavy, that's more depressive, a day where we don't really feel inspired to do much, a day where we're hearing news that makes us feel melancholic or pessimistic about the world at large, a day where it feels as if there is more bondage than there is freedom, a day where it feels as if there's more responsibility than there is joy and pleasure, a day where it feels as if the entire world collectively is feeling like a colder, more distant, more cruel, and less loving place. So this day is a Saturnian day, even though it's a Sunday, because November 2nd is a Sunday, it's very much manifesting as a very harsh Saturnian day for the world at large. We could be hearing things within the news that makes us feel depressed or downtrodden, or that makes us feel a little bit more broke, basically, because we know that Saturn is also a god of poverty and general hardship in life. So that's just something that we want to bear in mind for the 2nd of November as we continue to move through the week ahead. The 2nd of November isn't looking like a day for anybody's major benefit. Now, also happening on this day, the 2nd of November at 6:16 p.m. EST, we have the combination of Venus in a square relationship with Jupiter. Now, Venus-Jupiter is a lovely combination, and it's something that I really love. Here we have Venus at 24 degrees of Libra, and on this day, the 2nd of November, she's going to be perfecting her square relationship with Jupiter. Now, when we read the combinations of stellar influences, it tells us that Venus square Jupiter is one of the combinations that is corresponding with lover's bliss. And this idea that Venus-Jupiter corresponds with lover's bliss is one of the things that causes us to look for this combination whenever we are doing any synastry work, and particularly whenever we're doing marital work as far as electional astrology is concerned. So when are you going to tell somebody to go and get married? Probably on the day when they have Venus square Jupiter manifesting within their charts. Whether it is the transiting Venus to their natal Jupiter or the transiting Jupiter to their natal Venus, those are always going to be good days to suggest to a person as far as marriage timing is concerned, because Venus-Jupiter means lover's bliss. Now, here's where we get into the weeds with electional astrology, because sure, Venus-Jupiter is the combination that denotes lover's bliss, but on this day, we also have the combination that denotes separation and sadness and a day of general suffering or a day of general depression. So the question is, from an electional astrology perspective, would we suggest that somebody gets married on this day? Because on the one hand, we have the combination that we've always been waiting for, which is the combination of Venus-Jupiter as a combination for marriage. But on the other hand, we also have a combination that represents a day of depression. The sun gives us the word day, and the Saturn gives us the word depression. So on a day where we have a day of depression, but we also have a day of lover's bliss, which one do we think is going to outweigh the other? This is a genuine astrological question, and it's a true astrological issue that every astrologer has to resolve within themselves. Because what we have to remember ultimately is that there's never going to be a sky that is completely in harmony with anything that we want to do. There's always going to be something within the sky that throws us off, or that throws a monkey wrench in our wheels, or that does something that isn't necessarily manifesting as the best sort of sky in the world. For example, one might argue that for this entire period of time, for this entire stretch of months, while Saturn is in Pisces, retrograde, is going to be an awful time to do anything, including getting married, especially with that Saturn applying to the Neptune eventually when it stations and turns direct. And so the question becomes, when is a good time to do anything? Now, I would say that something that is as far-reaching and as sweeping as the Saturn and Pisces applying to the Neptune shouldn't necessarily be a thing that throws us off completely, because it's such a background element and it's just going to be a part of things regardless. And we can't tell people not to get married for the next year as a result of the Saturn-Neptune situation, because that would just be stupid. However, we also can't tell people not to get married within the next 2.5 years, because Saturn is going to be in the sign of Aries, and Aries is a sign of his fall. So essentially, if we were to wait for Saturn, for example, we would be waiting a very long time before we do anything, because also Saturn isn't really that strong in Taurus or Gemini or Cancer or Virgo. We'd have to wait until Saturn is in Libra. We'd all be old and beyond our childbearing years at that point if we were trying to get married, and it just wouldn't make sense anymore for us to even get married, as far as I'm concerned. So this isn't necessarily the sort of thing that should prevent us from doing anything from an electional astrology perspective. Now, what might prevent us from doing things from an electional astrology perspective under the auspices of this sky, going back to the example of should a person get married on this day, is one, the Sun, Saturn is a quicker moving combination, which means that as far as electing something is concerned, it's going to be a more concentrated impact, or it's going to have a more concentrated effect. And so, yes, definitely, I would not suggest that this be a day that somebody gets married because the Sun Saturn is going to be more concentrated and more potently charged than even the Saturn in Pisces applying to the Neptune. The Saturn in Pisces applying to the Neptune just has to be considered as a background influence during this period of time, whereas the Sun Saturn should be the influence that we're really thinking about because we're electing an event to occur on a day. And insofar as that day is concerned, it's a day of depression. Now, we also have to look for multiple things to support this desire not to make this thing happen. Here we have the Sun applying to the Saturn, or rather, here we have the Sun in the Sesquiquadrate with the Saturn, but we also have the Venus at 24 degrees Libra in a Quincunx relationship with that Saturn, and also ultimately going to be in a Quincunx relationship with that Neptune. Venus Quincunx Saturn is the combination for divorce. Venus in a conjunction, semi-square, square, sesquiquadrate, opposition. Any hard aspect between Venus and Saturn is an aspect that denotes divorce. Therefore, even though this person will also have Venus, Jupiter within the sky, which denotes lover's bliss, we have also seen two elements that suggest depression and also that suggest divorce. So, as an electional astrologer, would I suggest to my client that they get married on this day? Definitely, positively not, because there is more bad within the sky on this day than there is good. And as we've been told as traditional astrologers, a small good does not mitigate an overarching evil. And this is something that we have to think about within all of our astrological applications, because this applies in electional astrology, but it also applies within our lives in general. A tiny evil does not mitigate an overarching good, but at the same time, a small good does not mitigate an overarching evil. So today we have this wonderful combination of Venus, Jupiter in the sky, which is a wonderful combination for lover's bliss, but I still would suggest us not getting married on this day because the overarching element that we see also manifesting is a combination that says today is going to be a day of depression, and today is also going to be a day of separation, in which there is going to be more rupture than there is reconciliation, and more people are going to find themselves in a state of depression and destitution and not really feeling supported by anyone, not even the people who they think should have supported them in the first place. So all of that is happening on the 2nd of November. Now we can move on to the 4th of November and take a look at what's happening in the sky. We're skipping over the 3rd because once again, if you don't see it listed on the screen, that's because there is no hard aspect combinations happening in the sky on that day. And for those of you who don't know, or maybe you do know, this is my book, The New Western Medical Astrology. And everything that I say and do and think and feel within this lifetime is going to be in this book. So for those of you who definitely are wanting to learn how to interpret these combinations in the way that I interpret them, in the back of this book is a wonderful appendix. I oftentimes tell people, oh, there's Alfred Witte. There's also a photo of Alfred Witte, the only photographed person in this book. So if you want to know why he's there, buy the book. But I often tell people that the most valuable part of this book for me, the true treasury within this book for me, is from page 633 to page 661. What is that, like 30 pages? So this last 30 pages of the book, the appendix, which says Planetary Pairings in Medical Astrology, is such a powerful section of this book that the previous 600 pages, just throw them in the garbage. Because this last 33 pages of this book is the entire summary of everything that I know, or everything that I could fit within 33 pages about the different planetary combinations and how they manifest within the context of our medical well-being and vitality from a medical astrology perspective, but also how they manifest in the world at large as universal combinations of planets. So if you want to know how I go about interpreting these things, then definitely make sure to pick up a copy of this book, because everything that I'm saying here, I've written it far more eloquently within the new Western medical astrology. Now, on the 4th of November, we have the moon making her last aspect on this day, which is moon opposite Venus. That's going to be happening at 6:21 a.m. EST. And the moon is going to be void, of course, until about, 5 hours later, when she ingresses into Taurus at 11:15 a.m. EST. So what do we have to say about this? Once again, you know how I feel about it. For those 5 hours, do other things within the world. Do other things within the world that bring you joy, that bring you pleasure, that bring you happiness, that bring you peace, that bring you contentment. Would I send out a newsletter during these 5 hours of dead air? I probably wouldn't. So I just use that information for my own benefit, so that when I'm sending things out into the world, I know that there's some wind to carry them forward. So that's going to be the moon opposite Venus on the 4th of November to start us off. And the only other major thing happening on this day that we can see, well, there are two major things. One major thing is that Mars is going to be ingressing into Sagittarius, area of Mars at 0 degrees Sagittarius, 7 minutes. And later on this day, the 4th of November, at around, that's 12:29 p.m. EST, Mars is going to perfect his opposition to Uranus. Now, Mars in Sagittarius is nice. It's nice from the perspective that Mars is one of the fiery planets and Sagittarius is one of the fiery signs. So it's a day to get things done. Mars-Uranus is an explosive combination, because Uranus is kind of a super volatile Mars, whereas Mars is just regular volatile Mars. So on this day, we have a tendency for volatile activity, a tendency for explosions, a tendency to burst from our seams, a tendency to want to get things done quickly as soon as possible, a tendency to want to speed. And as a result of it being a tendency to want to speed, Mars-Uranus is also the combination in medical astrology for accidents and emergencies, for the ER room, essentially. Now, it's a great combination for getting things done quickly, for getting to the end of a major work project. But one of the things with Mars-Uranus is that it oftentimes doesn't care about quality control, but it oftentimes just cares about the quantity of things it can get done. And if you're a Mars-Uranus person, maybe you've lived your entire life on speed, and maybe you're still rushing even right now. Take a break, calm down, sit back, relax, and try to pay attention. Make whatever activities you're doing into acts of meditation. Learn how to meditate if you're a Mars-Uranus person, because oftentimes Mars-Uranus people can rush through life at a rate that oftentimes leads them into harm's way. And we want to slow down and really stop and smell the roses. And that's definitely something that we should be trying to integrate into our lives on this day, the 4th of November. Now we're going to move on through to the 6th of November. Once again, the 5th of November is looking like a very quiet day. Here we have the moon at 15 degrees of Taurus at midday on the 5th of November, which is wonderful. I like it a lot. And that also says that on the 5th of November, we're going to be having a full moon. Who knows? Maybe we do something special at the Oraculos School of Astrology on the 5th of November to celebrate this full moon. But there's going to be a full moon on the 5th of November, so go and do all things magical. One of the things that's really magical for me, and that has always been a part of my own magical practice, is dream work. And I think that I've shared that with you before. And the book in which I have written about dream work the most has been, Lois is saying it's election day. Oh, geez, Louise, it's election day. Okay. Well, we have to talk about that. We will talk about that. But one of the books in which I've spoken about dream work most extensively is Horary Astrology and the Natal Promise. And dream work is one of the things that we're going to be bringing into our membership community as well. So if you want to get a jump start on what astrological dream work looks like at the Oraculos School of Astrology, then please make sure to pick up yourself a copy of Horary Astrology and the Natal Promise today, so that you can dive into this fascinating world of dream work. I both speak about dream work from the perspective of astrological oneiromancy, which means casting horary charts to interpret dreams. But I also speak about dream work from the perspective of astrological geomancy, which is another branch of our traditional astral divination tools that was used extensively within the medieval period as well as the Renaissance, and it was also used as a very specific way of interpreting the things that arise while we are traversing the dreaming. So if you want to get into dream work, please do make sure to grab yourself a copy of this book, because as we move into December, we're going to be rolling out more of our dream work offerings within our dream work community, Oracles of the Dreaming, so that we can start 2026, not just with a dream work practice, but also with a dream work accountability partner. This morning when I woke up, I got back into my dream work practice and I started recording my dreams from last night. And I'm looking forward to working with my own accountability partner as well in the Oracles of the Dreaming. So I sincerely hope that you dive into this practice, because dream work is one of the surest ways for us to tap into those gates of hidden perception within ourselves. And that's fundamentally what we're wanting to do as astrologers, because we don't just want to only practice astrology. Astrology is wonderful, of course, but we also want to use our astrology as a means of unlocking some of our internal potentials as well. Now, let me just check and see what's going on over here in the chat. Yes, November 4th is a good day to vote in the NYC election. If I could vote in the NYC election, I know who I'd be voting for, but I can't. So anyway, we're going to move on through. We're going to move on through. So that's the 4th of November. Wow. If that's election day, then it's a great day to go and get stuff done, because it is a rapid fire day. And we're hoping that it is rapid fire in a way that leads towards success. On the 5th of November, we don't really have that much happening in the sky at all as far as hard aspects are concerned. So we're going to jump on through to the 6th of November. On the 6th of November, we have the moon making her last aspect in the sky on this day, which is going to be moon in a sextile relationship with Neptune. And that's going to be happening at 9:50 a.m. EST, after which the moon is going to ingress into Gemini at 10:20 a.m. EST. The ancients did not really like the moon in Gemini at all. On their list of considerations as to the things that bothered them about the moon in signs, the moon in Gemini was one of the things that they definitely did not like. And the reason for that is because the moon, when she's in Gemini, she has no essential dignity. She has neither domicile, exaltation, triplicity, term, face. She also doesn't have detriment or fall there. When the moon is in Gemini, she is peregrine from the 1st degree of that sign to the 30th degree of that sign. And she's also stuck between the sign of her exaltation, which is Taurus, and the sign of her domicile, which is Cancer. So when she's in Gemini, she sees both ends of the spectrum that she desires, but while she's passing through Gemini, she's passing through this no woman's land in which she cannot find herself. She doesn't speak the language. She doesn't understand what's going on within the world around her, and she fundamentally feels lost and confused. So, moon in Gemini, not necessarily the best thing in the world, but it is better than the moon being void, of course. And once again, like I said earlier, we cannot have everything we want as far as the sky is concerned. Now, on this day, the 6th of November, we also find that at 3:26 p.m. EST, we have the sun in a Sesquiquadrate relationship with Neptune. Here we have the sun at 14 degrees of Cancer. No, here we have the sun at 14 degrees of Scorpio in a Sesquiquadrate relationship with Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces, 41 minutes retrograde. Sun Neptune is right up there as far as bad days, as is Sun Saturn. Sun Neptune and Sun Saturn, both of those correspond with down days from a Uranian astrology perspective, because there really isn't that much difference in the activities of Saturn versus the activities of Neptune when we look at them as malefics. This is a part of why in medical astrology we consider Saturn-Neptune as a combination to be the combination for diseases of long duration or chronic illnesses, because Saturn is a planet of chronic disease and Neptune is a planet of chronic disease. Therefore, what happens when you bring a sponge and a starfish together to make a baby? They make a clam. That's a SpongeBob reference for those of you who don't know. But beyond the making a clam, they also, Saturn and Neptune specifically, create a day of, or an environment of chronic setback, chronic fatigue, chronic disillusionment, chronic dissolving of our plans and our ambitions. Thus, Saturn-Neptune, or rather Sun-Neptune on the 6th of November, is a day to hear a lying man speak. And we all can see through him and we all can tell that what he's saying is lies. Sun Neptune is a combination for the day of deception as well. So it's a very challenging combination as far as the day is concerned. It's not a combination of honesty. And the only way we can transmute this is by deeply involving ourselves in some very deep spiritual work on this day. So maybe on the 6th of November, let's see which day this is. Maybe on the 6th of November here at the Oraculos, that's a Thursday. We're going to probably, well, I can't even say because Thursday I'm in New York City. But maybe this is a wonderful day for us to dive into the establishment of a truly magical or spiritual practice because the Sun Neptune supports that. What it doesn't support on the physical plane is a lot of honesty. So that's something that we want to be mindful of. November 6th is a day of disappointment, but it's also a day of dishonesty. So maybe something disappointing happens in the world and we automatically get told lies regarding that thing that occurred. Now on this day, we also have Venus ingressing into Scorpio. That's happening at 5:39 p.m. EST. Venus ingressing into Scorpio, we have a lot to say about it because that's the sign of Venus's detriment. And we know that when Venus is in Scorpio, particularly from a medical astrology perspective, Venus is going to correspond with the reproductive system. Now, independent of that perspective, Venus already corresponds with the reproductive system, but specifically when she ingresses into Scorpio, because she already rules the reproductive system, and because Scorpio specifically corresponds with the reproductive system, we essentially have reproductive system in reproductive system. Therefore, when Venus is afflicted while in Scorpio, the place within the body where that affliction often manifests is the reproductive system. So that's just something for us to be mindful of. But I don't have much to say about Venus in Scorpio by herself because, as you know, I'd rather see aspects than to simply speak about planets placed in signs. On this day, the 6th of November, we also have Venus in a Sesquiquadrate relationship with the North Node, which is wonderful. We have Venus at 29 degrees Libra. We have the North Node at 15 degrees of Pisces. And this is a wonderful thing as far as establishing artistic connections is concerned. Venus means art. The nodes mean our intimate connections. So probably joining some artistic community is a wonderful thing for us to do on this day. It's also a great day as far as love is concerned because Venus is the goddess of love and the North and the nodes in general represent our intimate connections, which I've spoken about on many an occasion. Now moving on through to the 7th of November, big things are afoot because on the 7th of November, we have two things happening in the sky. We have Uranus re-ingressing into Taurus by retrograde motion. That's going to be happening at 9:21 p.m. EST. And we also have Venus in a square relationship with Pluto. That's going to be happening at 10:43 p.m. EST. Now, Uranus re-ingressing into Taurus is significant because when Uranus re-ingresses into Taurus, Uranus is going to be conjunct the cluster of fixed stars that we call the Pleiades or the seven weeping sisters, because we know that the Pleiades or the seven weeping sisters are at 29 degrees Taurus. And so for that reason, I consider this Uranus re-ingressing into Taurus as being an omen of some great shakeup and breakup within the world that possibly feels rooted in sorrow. Now, I wouldn't just say that because Uranus is ingressing into a sign, but I am saying that because Uranus, in ingressing back into the sign of Taurus, is also going to be returning to its conjunction with the Pleiades. So, while that may not manifest on this day specifically, I do believe that this is something that we can look forward to manifesting within the month of November in general, simply because Uranus, from 29 degrees Taurus to about 26 degrees Taurus, Uranus is going to be in the cluster of very malefic fixed stars. So while Uranus is re-navigating this end of Taurus, we can expect for violent explosions of very malefic events to transpire. And in order for us to actually identify or know what those specific malefic events are going to be, we really should be looking at the new moon chart for the various capitals of the world in general to see how it's going to be manifesting for us all within our specific regions. But that is the Uranus ingressing into Taurus. And then finally, we have Venus in a square relationship with Pluto, and that's happening at 10:43 p.m. EST. Venus square Pluto is the combination that denotes the story of the abduction and subsequent violation or rape of Persephone. And the entire dynamic of that story is encapsulated within this hard aspect between Venus and Pluto, particularly with the Venus in Scorpio, because for the ancients, Scorpio represented the turn towards death, basically, or the turning of the wheel of life towards the poisoning of life all around us, which is a part of why, as the sun travels through Scorpio, for those of us who live in parts of the world where we get the opportunity to experience the 4 seasons, as the sun is passing through Scorpio, we look outside and we see all of these plants that were once green starting to turn their color and turn to gold and brown until those plants ultimately die. Because Scorpio as a sign is associated with death. Venus in Scorpio is associated with Venus's traversing through the underworld, and Venus in Scorpio in a square relationship with Pluto, Pluto being another name for the god Hades, has to do with Hades's abduction and violation of Venus and forcing her, or not Venus, but of Persephone, and forcing her to become his wife. So today is a day of violation. Today is a day where people aren't respecting other people's rights or other people's needs for softness or gentleness within the world. Today is a day where we can hear talk about violations of intimate relationships or complete breaking and negations of intimate ties as we, or as people within the world, seek to have domination over other people. So today is a day of domination. Today is a day where we are so fixated on certain groups of individuals that we go in and completely screw up their lives forever, not realizing how that hurts them, essentially. Or maybe we do realize how that hurts them. I'm remembering a scene from Outlander because, as you all know, I'm like an Outlander fan. And within Outlander, there's this person, Blackjack Randall. And Blackjack Randall is so fixated on this guy, Jamie, that he wounds him and he whips him and he basically turns his back into a disaster of scar tissue and wounds, and he completely mutilates his back with his whip, basically. But at the same time, he is deeply in love with Jamie and infatuated with Jamie, and there's this sick connection. And so the combination of Venus-Pluto corresponds with that sort of diabolical tendency towards fanaticism within love. And so on this day, we can consider it to be a day where we hear stories of people who are innocent, who don't deserve the maltreatment that they're receiving, being maltreated by others who just can't leave them alone. So if you find out about a story before I do, please make sure to let me know in the comment section down below so that we can both be informed about global events together. All right, everybody, that is our look into the astrology for the week of November 2nd through 8th, 2025. I do want to let you all know about our upcoming Predictive Astrology Symposium, our Solar Return Symposium, which is going to be happening on the weekend of, not October, but on the weekend of November 21st through 23rd. We've just gotten done with the examinations for our advanced astrologers at Oraculos, and for some reason, the majority of them chose to present on the topic of pregnancy. And I'm the sort of person where if the universe tells me something multiple times, I'm going to listen, really, especially as far as astrology is concerned. So I saw one amazing presentation about pregnancy after the next. And at the end of it, I said, look, pregnancy seems to be the direction that we want to go as far as research is concerned. So let's put together a Solar Return Predictive Astrology Symposium in which we take a look at the topic of pregnancy and fertility in general, within the charts of women specifically. So we're going to be doing that from the 21st of November to the 23rd of November. So if you want to be a part of that event, please make sure to sign up for it over on our website at oraculosastrology.com. And once again, if you are a part of our membership community for this event, you will be receiving a 25% discount should you desire to join. So I sincerely look forward to having you all be a part of this event on the 21st to the 23rd of November 2025, where you can be a part of our Oraculos Solar Return Pregnancy Intensive. Pregnancy Intensive? No, not Pregnancy Intensive. Pregnancy Symposium, in which we look at the solar returns of women who've had various types of pregnancy-related stories, from successful pregnancies to unsuccessful pregnancies, to stories of infertility, to stories of traumatic childbirth. We'll be looking at it all from November 21st to November 23rd, and I sincerely look forward to you being a part of that. Also, as you all know, we've already started our medical astrology preliminary course, and while joining live is not necessarily something that you can do, you can purchase the recordings, and those recordings are already available for sale over on our Oraculos website. So if you want to be a part of that, please make sure to get yourself those recordings, because we are diving into all things related to medical astrology, and we've already started off hot with our first 2 classes. So I sincerely look forward to you being a part of that as well. All right, that's it for today. Have a wonderful day in the universe, and I will see you next week with next week's astrology. Once again, here on the Oraculos podcast. Bye-bye.